Captain Elias Kerr stood in the shuttle bay, watching the faint golden light of the Ishari throne world grow larger in the viewport. It was a world wrapped in a haze of glittering clouds, almost like it was hiding itself from the rest of the galaxy. The journey here had been long, tense, and filled with warnings from his crew. The Ishari Empire did not welcome humans lightly. Most encounters between their species had been anything but peaceful border clashes, trade disputes, and the occasional disappearance of patrol ships. Yet here he was, sent as the Terran Diplomatic Corps' representative, tasked with opening talks for a lasting peace. His orders had been clear: arrive in the proper diplomatic manner. Do not startle the Queen. Wait for the official escort, wear the ceremonial sash. Speak only when spoken to. But as the shuttle descended, something felt wrong. The comms link to the Ishari reception fleet had gone silent. No landing instructions. No escort fighters. No greeting from the planetary control towers. The silence was complete to be a simple miscommunication. The shuttle touched down on a massive landing platform of pale crystal. The platform stretched so far that the end disappeared into a shimmering haze. No one was there to meet him. Elias stepped out, the soft echo of his boots against the crystal making the only sound. The air was strangely still, thick, like it had weight. Somewhere in the distance, an enormous structure rose into the clouds. It was unlike any building he had ever seen. Tall spires twisted together like strands of silver thread, and the walls seemed to hum faintly, as if alive. This is not the welcome I was promised, Elias muttered to himself. But he knew he couldn't turn back, whatever had happened. His mission depended on reaching the Queen. He followed the long causeway toward the towering palace. The walkway was lined with tall crystal pillars, each etched with flowing alien script. Light refracted through them in shifting colors, casting ripples over the path. He kept walking, each step taking him deeper into the unknown. When the palace doors finally came into view, they were already open. That was strange. In every cultural briefing he'd studied, Ishari royal doors never opened for outsiders. Without ceremony, still, Elias stepped inside. The palace interior was vast beyond imagining. The ceiling arched hundreds of meters overhead, disappearing into a soft silver glow. Walls shimmered with streams of light, like water flowing upward, instead of down. The air smelled faintly of rain and something sharp, metallic. It was silent, no guards, no advisors, no music, nothing. Then he saw her. At the far end of the enormous hall stood the alien Queen. She was tall, taller than any human he'd met, with an elegant frame, and a long, flowing crest that extended from her head like a crown of living crystal. Normally, the Ishari monarch would be encased in ceremonial armor that reflected her status, layers of biometal plates that merged with her skin, alive with shifting colors. But today, she wore none of it. She stood unadorned, her scaled skin catching the light in 1,000 tiny reflections. The effect was breathtaking in its simplicity, but Elias could see why this would be considered a vulnerable state among her people. It was like meeting a human monarch without their guards, without their robes, just as they truly were. The Queen's eyes, deep silver, with faint rings of violet, twined in shock when she saw him. The frilled edges along her crest trembled, a movement he recognized from his studies as a sign of surprise and alarm. "You are early," she said at last, her voice low and resonant, each word spoken in precise Terran standard. "Far too early. How is this possible?" Elias stopped halfway across the hall. "Your Majesty, my shuttle was cleared to land. I assumed no one cleared your approach." She interrupted, her gaze narrowing. "There were to be 3 days before our meeting. The council chambers are not prepared. My guard is absent. Even the throne hall is." She glanced around at the empty space, as if realizing how exposed she was. Elias realized something important. This wasn't just an unusual meeting. This was a breach of protocol so massive it could be mistaken for an act of aggression. And yet, he hadn't done anything unusual on his end. His ship had simply followed the navigation data provided. "I think," he said carefully, "someone wanted me to arrive like this." The Queen's eyes narrowed further, but she did not approach. Instead, she tilted her head slightly, studying him, If this is a human tactic, it is an unwise one. If it is not, then there are forces moving between us that neither of us control. A faint hum began to build in the distance, slow at first, then growing sharper. Elias turned slightly, instinctively reaching toward the small device at his belt, a translator and communicator combined. But the sound wasn't coming from his gear. It was coming from somewhere outside the palace. The queen's gaze flicked toward the great doors. This conversation will wait. Follow me. Elias hesitated. He had been told to remain in the throne hall until summoned. But this was no ordinary meeting, and something told him the rules were already broken. The queen moved quickly, her long stride silent against the polished floor. She led him down a side passage, its walls glowing with faint light. The hum outside grew louder, now layered with the distant sound of engines. When they reached a narrow balcony overlooking the city, Elias finally saw the source. Dark shapes were descending through the clouds, sleek, angular ships he didn't recognize. They were not Ishari, and they were not human. They moved in perfect formation, too tight and precise for ordinary patrol craft. This was a military fleet. Do you know them? Elias asked. The queen's crest lowered slightly, a sign of concern. No, and that is what troubles me. Below them, the vast streets of the Ishari capital began to stir. Civilians scattered into shelter as defense towers powered up, beams of light stabbing into the sky. The hum in the air deepened into a steady thrum, vibrating through the balcony floor. Elias realized something else. If these newcomers were hostile, then the Ishari might think humanity was behind it. His sudden, uninvited arrival could look like part of a coordinated strike. This isn't coincidence, he said quietly. The queen looked at him for a long moment. No, it is not. She turned, motioning for him to follow again. We go to the war chamber. You will explain everything about your arrival. And if your story proves true, her voice hardened slightly, then you and I may have more in common than I thought. As they moved deeper into the palace, the distant ships continued their descent. Elias could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him. He had come here to negotiate peace, but instead, he might be walking straight into the first battle of a new war. And for the first time since landing, he wondered if he was the one who had been lured here, or if the queen herself had been placed in the trap. The corridors of the Ishari palace were alive with faint, shifting light as Captain Elias Kerr followed the queen deeper into its inner halls. The sound of the unknown fleet's engines still rumbled. In the distance, a constant reminder that something was coming. He could not shake the feeling that every step he took was pulling him further into the center of someone's plan. They turned down a narrow passage that curved sharply upward. The floor was made of transparent crystal, revealing layers of moving light far beneath them, like rivers of energy flowing inside the palace itself. The queen walked quickly, but her posture was tense. Elias noticed that the frilled crest behind her head kept flicking slightly, an involuntary movement he recognized from his cultural briefings as a sign of discomfort. Finally, they emerged into a large circular chamber filled with tall, semi-transparent walls. Glowing data glyphs floated in the air, and a huge spherical display hovered in the center, showing the Ishari home system. Several palace aides stood frozen in place, clearly startled by the queen's sudden arrival without her ceremonial armor. When they noticed Elias, their eyes widened further, but none dared speak. This is the war chamber, the queen said firmly. It is where my people plan for the defense of the empire. You will speak here truthfully, and I will decide whether you are friend or deceiver. Elias nodded, taking a slow breath. Your Majesty, my ship arrived exactly as instructed. The landing coordinates were sent to us 3 days ago from a Ishari diplomatic channel. There was no escort, no delay. If that was not from you, then someone is intercepting or imitating your signals. The queen's silver eyes locked on him. You are certain? Yes, I checked the encryption personally. It matched the Ishari diplomatic seal. She turned to one of her aides. Verify this. The aide bowed quickly and hurried to a console, tapping symbols into the glowing interface. A faint hum passed through the chamber as the system ran its search. The queen remained silent, studying Elias. He could feel her weighing every movement he made. A moment later, the The aide looked up, crest trembling slightly. Majesty, the captain speaks truth. The signal did match our seal, but it was not sent from this planet. It came from somewhere within the asteroid belt of the second moon. The Queen's eyes narrowed. That is a restricted military zone. Elias frowned. Then whoever sent it had deep access to your systems. The room grew tense. The aides exchanged glances, but no one dared to speak further. Outside the chamber, the distant rumble of the descending fleet grew louder. The spherical display in the center began to shift. Tiny glowing symbols representing ships appeared at the system's edge. Moving inward, the Queen stepped forward, her crest rising slightly, a sign of command. Identify them. One of the aides manipulated the display. The ships grew larger on the projection, sleek, black forms with sharp angles. No visible markings. The projection labeled them with red glyphs, symbols Elias couldn't read. He didn't need to. They're not yours, Elias said quietly. They are not yours either, the Queen asked. Her voice sharped out. Elias shook his head. Human ships are different, more functional, more visible weapon ports. These, he gestured toward the projection. These are made for stealth and intimidation. The Queen stepped back from the display, her gaze never leaving the image of the intruding fleet. Then someone intends for us to suspect each other. An early arrival by a human diplomat. A strange fleet on my doorstep. It could be made to look like a joint strike. Elias understood instantly. Which means they want war between our species. Or at least they want to make sure we never trust each other, the Queen added. For a long moment, the war chamber was silent except for the quiet hum of the systems. Then, without warning, the main projection flickered. A burst of static passed through the air, and the image changed to something new, a tall, cloaked figure standing in shadow. The voice that followed was distorted, deep, and almost mechanical. To the Ishari Queen and the human captain, you have walked willingly into our snare. Leave your alliance dreams behind. Your time is over. Before anyone could respond, the projection snapped back to the star map. The intruding ships were closer now, only minutes away from entering the Ishari homeworlds. Atmosphere. The Queen's voice was calm but edged with steel. Seal the outer defense network. Bring all city shields to full power. Prepare for ground defense. Elias stepped closer to the display. Majesty, you should also send a signal to my people. Let them know I am here, and that you have not been attacked by humans. Otherwise, this fleet's attack could trigger retaliation. The Queen considered this, then nodded once. Do it. Use the palace's central beacon. If these intruders are clever, they will try to block your signal. See if you can outwit them. Elias followed an aide to a side console, his mind racing. He had once been a communications officer, before becoming a diplomat, and the palace's system reminded him of human encryption designs, just more elegant, more fluid. He began working quickly, bypassing the usual protocols, weaving the message into the palace's defense grid so it would transmit disguised as shield calibration data. Anyone scanning would think it was harmless. Energy output logs within moments. The system confirmed, message sent. He turned back toward the Queen. It's done. If my people are listening, they'll know you're not our enemy. The Queen gave the faintest hint of approval. Good. Now let us see if you can fight as well as you talk. The war chamber's central doors slid open, and two Shari guards entered, tall, armored, and carrying long energy pikes. They bowed to the Queen. Majesty, the intruders are breaking the upper atmosphere. The Queen stepped forward, her silver eyes blazing. Then we will greet them together. She motioned for Elias to follow once again. They moved quickly through the palace, past balconies and long crystalline bridges that overlooked the capital. Below, the city's great shield domes shimmered into place, massive fields of light that curved over entire districts. Defense towers rotated upward, tracking the black shapes now visible in the sky. The intruder fleet had arrived. The lead ship was enormous, its hull like a blade slicing through the clouds. Smaller craft swarmed around it in perfect coordination. Elias could feel the tension in the air, the hum of the city's shields, the vibration of distant weapons charging. Majesty, Elias said quietly, if these ships break through, they won't stop at your palace. I know, the queen replied, which is why they will not break through. The lead ship fired first a beam of red energy that struck the city's upper shield. The impact flashed so brightly that Elias had to shield his eyes. The barrier rippled but held. Seconds later, the Ishari towers responded, sending thin, piercing beams of blue light upward, cutting into the black holes. Elias felt the ground tremble beneath him, somewhere deep in his chest. The reality of the situation settled in. This was no diplomatic meeting anymore. This was survival. The queen's voice cut through the noise, calm but commanding. Captain Kerr, your people are not here, but you are. If you wish to prove humanity's worth, now is your chance. Elias looked up at the descending fleet, then at the queen. Then let's make sure whoever set this trap regrets it. And together, under the shadow of the unknown invaders, they prepared to fight. The sky above the Ishari capital was alive with light. Beams of red and blue streaked through the clouds as the palace trembled. Under the force of distant impacts, Captain Elias Kerr followed the queen through a side corridor toward what she called the command spire, a high balcony that gave a full view of the battlefield. The spire rose above the palace like a shard of crystal piercing the clouds. From here, Elias could see the entire city, great silver towers connected by glowing bridges, shield domes shimmering like giant bubbles, and far beyond, the black shapes of the invading fleet. The lead enemy vessel hovered at the edge of the atmosphere, sending down precise bursts of fire. Smaller ships darted between the Ishari defense towers, their movements unnervingly synchronized. They didn't move like ordinary pilots. They're too perfect, Elias said quietly. The queen turned her silver eyes toward him. What do you mean? Even the best human pilots make small mistakes. Same for Ishari, I guess. These, he pointed toward a formation of black craft weaving between the towers. Never miss a beat. Either they're all linked somehow, or they're not fully alive in there. The queen's crest stiffened slightly. Artificial minds, or worse, Elias replied. Artificial minds controlled by someone who wants to keep their own hands clean. The queen studied the invaders for a moment longer, then looked to one of her armored guards. Bring the eye. The guard bowed and hurried away. Moments later, he returned carrying a large, oval device of polished metal. The surface rippled like liquid as he placed it on a low pedestal. The queen touched the device lightly, and a deep hum filled the air. The oval brightened, showing a magnified view of the enemy lead ship. The image was so sharp that Elias could see seams in the black plating and faint red lines glowing across the hull. There, Elias said, pointing to a section near the ship's center. That glow, it's different from the weapon fire. Could be a power source, could be a control hub. The queen tilted her head. You think we can strike it? Maybe, but we'd have to distract them first. Make them think the attack is coming from somewhere else. The queen's crest curved slightly, a sign of intrigue. And how would a human accomplish this? Elias thought for a moment, then smiled faintly, by making the enemy chase shadows. Before the queen could respond, the balcony shook violently. A blast had struck somewhere close to the palace from below. A column of smoke rose between two shield domes. The queen's expression hardened. They are testing the shields, she said, looking for weaknesses. Elias glanced back at the black ships. Then we need to act before they find one. The queen led him down from the spire to a smaller chamber filled with sleek control panels. A ring of Ishari officers worked here, their hands moving across glowing symbols at remarkable speed. The queen spoke in her own language, giving short, sharp orders. One of the officers handed Elias a slim, wrist-mounted device. This will link you to our targeting network, the queen explained. You may use it to guide our defense towers. But remember, if you guide them wrongly, my people will know. Elias slipped the device on. Then I better not miss. He quickly began scanning the targeting grid, marking patterns in the enemy fleet's movements. The more he watched, the more certain he became these ships were not flying with human or Ishari instincts. Every turn was calculated, every formation mathematically perfect. He decided to test his theory. He marked a false target far above the palace, making it look like a transport ship was fleeing. Within seconds, 3 enemy craft broke formation to pursue it. They took the bait, Elias said. Now, let's see if they'll fall for the second step. He shifted targeting markers rapidly, simulating multiple moving targets across the city's edge. The enemy responded every time, splitting into smaller groups to chase the illusions. In doing so, they left their lead ship less protected. The Queen's gaze sharpened. Now we strike your glowing point. With a sharp gesture, she signaled her officers. 3 defense towers rotated upward in perfect unison. A moment later, thin beams of concentrated blue energy shot into the sky, all converging on the same spot on the enemy's hull. The glow on the lead ship flared violently, and for a moment Elias thought they'd done it. But then the beams broke off, intercepted by sudden bursts of red fire from the smaller ships that had returned to defend. They learned, Elias said. The Queen's voice was calm, but her crest trembled faintly. They are adapting quickly. Too quickly. Elias stared at the lead ship, his mind racing. If they're linked by a shared control signal, we can disrupt it. Not destroy them, but slow them down. The Queen studied him carefully. And you know how to do this, maybe, Elias said, glancing at the wrist device. If your defense grid has an emitter powerful enough, I could send a burst of false commands into their network. If I'm lucky, they'll waste precious seconds trying to respond. The Queen gave a single, sharp nod. Do it. Working quickly. Elias tapped into the defense grid's frequency controls. The Ishari officers watched silently, their expressions unreadable. He began building a pulse, carefully balancing power and signal pattern, so it would mimic the invaders' own communications. The Queen moved closer. You have done this before. Elias gave a small shrug. Not for this kind of enemy. But I've jammed human pirates who thought they could outsmart our patrols. Signal warfare isn't so different, it's just a language problem. Finally, the pulse was ready. Elias looked to the Queen. Once I send this, they'll know someone inside the city is interfering. Be ready for them to react fast. Send it, she said. He pressed the control. The chamber lights dimmed briefly as the pulse burst outward. On the balcony's outer screens, the enemy formation twitched. For a few seconds, their movements lost their perfect coordination. Ships veered off course. Weapons fired at empty air, to even-clipped wings, and spiraled away. The Queen's crest rose high, a clear sign of approval. It works. But then, as quickly as it began, the disruption faded. The fleet reformed, tighter than before, and the lead ship's glow brightened. They've strengthened their signal, Elias muttered. We bought maybe a minute. The Queen's gaze was steady. A minute can decide battles. Before Elias could respond, a sudden alarm cut through the chamber. One of the officers spoke rapidly in the Ishari tongue, and the Queen's eyes narrowed. They are deploying ground forces, she translated. Not in the city, on the far side of the planet. Elias frowned. That doesn't make sense. Why split their forces, unless, the Queen said slowly, their real objective is not my capital at all. Elias's mind flashed back to the false signal that had brought him here. Your restricted military zone, he said, near the second moon. If that's where the message came from, the Queen finished his thought, then that is what they want, and we have both been used as a distraction. Outside, the enemy fleet pressed harder against the shields, but Elias barely noticed now. The real danger was somewhere else entirely, and if they didn't act fast, they might both lose far more than a city. The command spire shook again as another blast struck the city's shields. Outside, the sky still burned with red and blue light, but Elias Care's mind was already far from the battle above. If the enemy's real target was near the second moon, then the fight here was nothing more than a distraction. The Queen turned sharply to her officers. Hold the shields. Keep the fleet engaged. No one withdraws until I return. The officers bowed, but one spoke in a low, urgent tone. The Queen shook her head firmly. I will go. Send word to the vigilant spirit. We'll prepare for launch. Elias stepped forward. You're leaving the palace? Her silver eyes met his. Yes, if we allow the enemy to take what lies in that restricted zone. Then this war will be decided before it begins. What's there? Elias asked. A vault. The Queen said. an ancient core from before a recorded history. It is dangerous, but powerful. In the wrong hands, it could enslave entire fleets, perhaps entire worlds. Elias felt the weight of her words. Then we have to get there first. The vigilant spear waited on a smaller landing platform hidden behind the palace's western spires. It was a sleek Ishari warship, its hull a deep silver that reflected the glow of the shield domes. Unlike the massive defense cruisers in orbit, this vessel was built for speed and precision. Elias followed the Queen aboard. The ship's interior was alive with quiet hums and glowing control panels. Every surface seemed to shift slightly, as if the vessel itself was aware of their presence. "This ship is bonded to me," the Queen explained as they moved toward the bridge. "It will not obey another, but it will allow you to act if I tell it to." "That's reassuring," Elias said, glancing at the smooth, flowing panels that seemed to watch him as he passed. The bridge was small compared to human warships, just a central command chair surrounded by curved displays. The Queen took her seat, her crest rising high as she placed her hands onto thin arcs of light. The ship seemed to awaken, the panels brightening, the hum deepening. Elias slid into a side console. It wasn't built for humans, but the controls adapted to his touch, symbols shifting into a simple interface he could read. The Queen gave a short command in her own language, and the vigilant spear lifted smoothly from the platform. A moment later, it shot forward, weaving between the tall crystal towers before rising above the shield domes and breaking through the upper atmosphere. The battle in TH skies was fierce. Ishari defense towers sent beams of blue light upward, while the black enemy ships darted and twisted in perfect formation as the vigilant spear rose. Several invaders broke away from the fight to intercept them. "They've noticed us," Elias said. The Queen's crest trembled slightly. "Let them follow. It will draw them away from the vault." The pursuing ships closed in quickly. Elias locked onto one with the console's targeting system. Their armor is strongest at the front. "Aim for the joints between panels." The Queen adjusted course sharply, bringing the ship into a narrow spiral. The enemy overshot, and the vigilant spear fired a single lance of white light. It struck the side of the nearest black ship, tearing through the armor at a glowing seam. The craft exploded silently in the void, fragments scattering into the darkness. Another enemy swung around behind them. Elias switched targeting to the rear weapons, firing now. Twin bursts of energy shot from the vigilant spear's tail, hitting the enemy's engine. The ship spun out of control and vanished into the black. The Queen's voice was calm but urgent. "Enough! We cannot waste time here." She angled the vessel toward the far side of the planet. The curve of the horizon fell away beneath them, revealing the glittering ring of debris and asteroids that circled the second moon. Somewhere in that belt was the Voltan, whoever had sent the false signal that brought Elias here. As they approached the asteroid field, the Queen slowed the ship. Large chunks of rock drifted lazily, their surfaces glowing faintly from the reflection of the nearby sun. The vigilant spear wove carefully through them, its hull brushing dangerously close to spinning stones the size of buildings. "There," Elias said, pointing to a faint glimmer ahead. A structure was embedded in one of the largest asteroids, an angular shape of black metal, its surface covered in strange markings. The Queen's crest lowered slightly. "That is not ours. It is the enemy." Before Elias could respond, a cluster of black ships emerged from the shadow of the asteroid. They moved differently from the ones attacking the capital, slower, heavier. Their hulls marked with the same faint red glow as the lead ship in orbit. "They're guarding it," Elias said, "which means the vault must be close." The Queen's hands tightened on the arcs of light. "Then we break through." The next moments were a blur of sharp turns and flashing light. The vigilant spear darted between enemy ships, its white lances of energy cutting through their armor. Elias focused on the targeting console, marking weak points and feeding them to the Queen's controls. One enemy ship tried to block their path. The Queen dove beneath it, skimming so close that the hulls nearly touched. The vigilant spear rolled upward, firing at point-blank range. The black vessel split apart, drifting into the asteroid's shadow. Finally, the asteroid with the vault loomed ahead, A single docking ring protruded from its side, faint lights running along its edges. The Queen slowed the ship. We cannot destroy the vault. It would cause too much damage to the system. But we can seal it. Elias looked at her. Seal it how? By locking it with my genetic key, she said. No Ishari can open it without me, and I will be the last to try. Before they could dock, a massive shadow fell over them. The lead enemy ship from orbit had arrived, its black hull blotting out the light. They followed us, Elias said. They are desperate, the Queen replied, which means we still have a chance. The enemy ship launched smaller craft, each one streaking toward the asteroid's docking ring. Elias's mind raced. If they reach the vault before you do, they will not, the Queen said firmly. She pushed the vigilant spirit to its limits, weaving through the swarm of enemy craft. Elias fired continuously, taking down any that strayed too close to the docking ring. The Queen brought the ship in hard, landing against the ring with a shudder. Go, Elias shouted. I'll hold them. Off from here. The Queen rose from her chair. Do not let them destroy my ship, Captain Kerr. She vanished into the docking corridor, her silver crest catching the light one last time before the doors closed. Elias turned back to the console, his hands moving faster than he thought possible. Enemy ships closed in, their weapons flashing. Against the asteroid's surface dot above him, the massive lead ship began to lower, blocking out what little light remained. He didn't know if they could hold them back long enough for the Queen to seal the vault. But he knew one thing. If they failed, it wouldn't just be the Ishari Empire at risk. It would be the entire galaxy. The docking ring shuddered under the impact of enemy fire. Captain Elias Kerr sat at the Vigilant Spear's console, eyes locked on the swarm of black enemy craft trying to land on the asteroid. Every second counted. Somewhere inside, the Queen was sealing the ancient vault. If she failed, the enemy would control a weapon that could enslave fleets. Elias targeted the closest attacker and fired. A burst of white light tore through its hull, scattering fragments into the darkness. Another ship darted in, weaving through the debris. Elias quickly adjusted the aim and struck it before it could fire on the docking ring. The comm crackled. Captain Kerr, the Queen's voice came, steady but urgent. The vault is almost sealed. Hold them a little longer. How long is a little? Elias asked, switching targets again. 3 minutes, she replied. Then you'd better work fast. Outside, the massive lead enemy ship was lowering toward the asteroid. Its black hull was lined with red lights that pulsed like a heartbeat. Elias could feel its presence like a shadow pressing against his mind. Whoever commanded it wasn't just trying to win. They wanted to crush all resistance. The smaller enemy craft moved in perfect coordination, protecting the lead ship as it descended. Elias realized he couldn't destroy them all, not in time. He needed a distraction big enough to draw them away. From the docking ring, his eyes flicked to the asteroid's status display. The surface was unstable, with pockets of gas trapped under rock. If he could hit the right spot, it would create a massive explosion enough to scatter the attackers for a short while. He brought up the targeting system and marked one of the gas pockets. Near the edge of the asteroid, the Vigilant Spears. Weapons locked on, rock, Elias muttered, and fired. The shot pierced the asteroid's crust, igniting the trapped gas in a blinding flash. The explosion rippled across the surface, sending shards of rock spinning into space. Enemy ships swerved wildly to avoid the debris, breaking their perfect formation. Now we're talking, Elias said, using the opening to take out to more craft. The Queen's voice returned over the comm. The lock is set. The vault will not open without me. Good, Elias said. Because they're bringing in the big one. Through the front display, the lead enemy ship loomed larger. Its forward weapon ports glowed bright red, charging for a shot that could destroy the docking ring entirely. The Queen reappeared on the bridge, her silver crest high and her movements sharp. If that weapon fires, the vault will be buried, but so will we. Elias glanced at her. Then we hit them first. The Queen took her place at the central controls. The Vigilant Spear surged forward, weaving between drifting rocks. The enemy's smaller craft regrouped quickly, trying to block their path. Elias focused on clearing the way, targeting any ship that came too close. The lead ship's weapon glow intensified. Time was almost out. Straight ahead, Elias said. The glow near their midsection, that's their power core. If we can damage it, they will be forced to withdraw. The Queen finished. The vigilant spear dove low, skimming along the asteroid's surface before rising sharply toward the enemy's underbelly. Beams of red light sliced past them, but the Queen's control was flawless, firing main lance. She said, and the ship's forward weapon unleashed a concentrated beam of white energy. It struck the enemy's glowing midsection, sending a shockwave rippling across the hull. The red lights along the ship's sides flickered. Its weapon ports dimmed. They're not done yet, Elias warned. We need to make it stick. The Queen's crest trembled slightly, an emotional sign he'd learned meant determination. Then we strike again. She looped the vigilant spear around for a second pass. Elias marked the exact point of damage from the first hit. The ship dove straight toward it, weaving between bursts of enemy fire. At the last moment, the Queen fired again. The beam hit the weakened hull, and this time the glow at the ship's core went out completely. The massive vessel shuddered, its movements slowing. Smaller craft began to scatter, breaking formation entirely. They're pulling back, Elias said. The Queen kept the vigilant spear steady, watching the enemy retreat. They will return. But not today. Elias let out a slow breath. Then let's get back to your city before they think of something else. The journey back was